Anyway, so let's get into this. This is the third part of a three-part series, getting customers to switch. Now, getting customers to switch is going to be a big deal in the future because getting new clients is very tough, right? And sometimes what we have to do is find ways to get into some of these bigger clients because we know that if we get that business, we can probably land and expand and grow the business. So in the first couple of sessions, the first session we talked about, let's do a quick recap. In the first session, I kind of gave you this equation, right? First, you have to show the customer, the potential client, that there is a gain in moving to your product or service. The M stands for magnitude. In other words, it has to be a sizable gain. But even if they're convinced that you can help them, that there is a magnitude, in other words, it's a sizable increased revenue, reduced cost, or help them expand market share, that you can really help them. The last part, the PE, if you recall, is perceived effort. And if it's too much work to switch over, they won't do it. So our goal is to reduce, if you remember the phrase, the friction to getting a customer to move forward. So let's say that we reduce the friction for the customer to move forward. The second session we talked about, well, how do you develop trust? Because part of, buying into you to switch over from existing to you, in other words, they're using your competitor to switch over to you, you've shown them gain magnitude, you showed them that it's not going to be that hard to switch over, but the trust factor is also big. And remember, we said there's three components of trust, right? And unless you're hitting on those three components of trust, you're not going to be trusted or position yourself as a trusted advisor. So let's say you've done that. One, you've reduced that perceived effort, right? You showed them that there is a gain. You reduced the perceived effort. They trust you because you've positioned yourself as a trusted advisor. There's a third part, and it's what we're going to talk about today, and that is the loyalty effect. Now, the loyalty effect is interesting because it's not rational. It's emotional. In fact, when we look at loyalty, this is kind of how it adds up. It's kind of right brain, left brain, right? Left brain logic, right brain emotional. And our job, in order to, again, when we're dealing with people who are, let's say, loyal, and it's an emotional pull towards that client, then what we have to do is figure out a way to take it away from the emotional and make it logical. Let me say this again because this is important. It's subtle, but if you get it, you get it. You'll sell at a different level if you understand this. We want to move the purchase, the buy, out of the emotional space and move it over into the logical space. How do we do that? Well, I got several strategies for you. And again, this will be very brief, but I think you'll like these. The first one is, I call it the option. Now, when a customer says, I'm happy with my current provider, I'm happy with who I'm buying from, where do you go from that? Well, you present yourself as an option. You say something like this. I'm happy that you're happy. Isn't that beautiful? I'm happy that you're happy. And then you ask this question, but in business, isn't it always good to have options? Now look what I just did. It's a simple phrase. It's that simple. Look how simple this phrase is, but there's some magic psychological science, if you will, behind this. When you say, yeah, I'm happy that you're happy, you're basically saying, I'm not fighting you. I'm happy that you're happy. In other words, instead of meeting their rejection with force, you say, yeah, I'm glad you're happy. But then you use the but. And as we know, the but always negates whatever comes before that. But in business, just that phrase, in business, I've taken it out of the emotional, moved it over to the logical. In business, isn't it always good to have options? The majority of people, 9 times out of 10, are going to say, yes, it's always good to have options. Well, then that's all we want to do is for you to consider us as an option. Now, in psychology, there's a phrase. It's called the foot in the door strategy. Foot in the door strategy, which means you're trying to just get your foot in the door and then eventually get inside the house, or in this case, the company. So this is almost a foot in the door strategy. We're just an option. Isn't it always good to have an option? And the majority of clients will say yes. Well, then that's all we are. Do you mind if I show you what we offer? And all of a sudden, you're going to get a more like a yes than a no. Because all you're doing is positioning yourself as an option. You're not trying, this is important, you're not trying to kick out the incumbent. That's your intent, of course. But in the customer's eyes, you're not trying to tell them, hey, get rid of the other person. You're just saying, we just want to be an option. Foot in the door strategy. Let's go to number 2. This is what I call the compare strategy. Okay, now this is where you kind of get them to compare. So what you'll do in this one is you'll do something like this. Again, it's great to hear. I'm happy. It's great to hear that you're happy. can I ask you a few questions regarding the service they're providing? In other words, what you want to do, they're telling you they're happy with who they have. Great to hear, or whatever phrase you want to come up with. But you want to say, can I ask a few questions about the service they're providing? Again, notice it's a foot in the door strategy. I'm not trying to kick out or directly kick out somebody. I'm saying, can I ask you a few questions about the service they're providing? Because what you're trying to do is, again, take it out of the emotional, move it into the logical. Can you tell me what they're offering you? And like that, I can better understand if there's any way we can actually offer the same, if not more. Obviously, offering the same is not going to get them to change. But then you can ask questions like, well, after you've gone through everything they offer, we do the same, but do they have this? Do they offer this? And can you also do that? And if you've done that differentiation right there, the customer's going to say, no, we don't have that. They don't have that. And what that will do is one of two things. One, they'll be interested in what you have to offer, or at a minimum, they'll have to go back to the incumbent, the person, the service provider they're using, and say, hey, Chris over here said he offers this, this, and this. Do you have that, or do you offer that also? So what you've done is you've inserted some doubt, and then maybe that doubt will come back your way, so to speak. Number 3. How about this one? Again, I'm happy with my current supplier. Now this one, it's all about an audit. What you're trying to do is great to hear. Do you mind if I take a look to make sure that they're providing the minimum requirements? It's absolutely free. In other words, you're just saying, it's almost like an audit. You're saying, that's great. Do you mind if I take a look at what they're offering or what service they're providing to make sure that you're getting everything that you should be getting? Now again, it's absolutely free. Now this one's a little gutsy, because what you're saying is, well, let me see what they're giving you or what they're providing, what products you're using, and let me take a look at that. Now, if you already know the competitor, you probably know what the weaknesses are, right? But this is one of those situations where if you don't know going in what the other incumbent is offering, then this gives you an opportunity for the customer to say, yeah, why don't you take a look at what they got? It's just an audit. And again, notice what I'm doing here with all 3 strategies. I'm not trying to say get rid of the person, the incumbent, my competitor. I'm saying, 1, I just want to be considered an option. Number 2, well, let me see if they're giving you everything they should be giving you. And in this case, again, we got option, we got the audit. You're just trying to get them to start thinking about it. That's all you're trying to do. 3 different strategies. Now, let's say you've gone through 1, 2, or 3 of these strategies, and maybe it didn't work. But I guarantee you, at a minimum, you've placed some doubt in the customer's mind. In the first one, again, you just want to be considered an option. That's it. Number 2, compare what they're offering to what you're offering, see if there's a difference. Number 3, create this audit situation. Well, let me see what they're offering. But let's say you go through all 3, and that's still not working for you, right? It's just not enough. Then the 4th one, and this is where, again, it's a long-term game, and I call it familiarity. Keep in mind that people will only go with people they trust and like. We've all heard that phrase, right? So what I will start doing, if it's an important customer, and I'm speaking more specifically to B2B clients here, if I know there's a specific client I want, almost like an anchor store in a mall. You ever go to a mall? They got like big 4 anchor stores, right? I want you to imagine that in your client pipeline, you have 4, 5, maybe even 10 clients that, man, if you can just land one of those, just one, you're golden, right? So what happens? You can't get in because there's an incumbent already, and they're just not willing to make it over. You've done everything. You've done the option. You've done the compare. You've done the audit approach. Then what you do is create this, what I call, again, it's a cadence. It's a connection cadence where you put them on a schedule for every month. So I would call Chris up every month and say, Chris, how's it going this month? Just checking in to see if anything's changed, or maybe just to take the person out to lunch, whatever it may be. If I know this is a big account and I want that account, I'm going to create familiarity. It may not be every month, maybe it's every 3 months. But let's say I'm playing the long game here. The long game being, this is a big contract. If I can just get this contract, I know I can win. I would set up this connection cadence where every, let's say 3 months, I'll reach out to Chris just to touch base. How's everything going? And I got to tell you, after 4 or 5 times of doing this, the customer is going to start looking at you not as a client coming in to try to take another person's business, but they're going to start seeing you as more of a friend, somebody who's familiar. So again, try the 3 strategies. Worst case, you got to play the long game so they become familiar with it. And on that